Okay, I start here, Dr. Jawahar Surisetti from India, and a very warm welcome to the Youth for Youth summit here. And today is the third day, I suppose, the 16th of October. And I'll be speaking on the future well-being of youth. Now, this is slightly futuristic. Maybe it might sound a little more technical, but I'll try to make it as simple as possible. We'll be doing some examples and some interactions, so it's not just a one-way traffic. Come the COVID, we've seen a lot of people and at homes in the lockdowns, in the four walls of homes, and it has affected a lot of youth because we have not encountered this before. Although the issue of well-being was there pre-corona also, but it has come into the limelight right now more because there have been cases where the youth have been depressed to a great extent because of the grim scenario of the employment scenario or the education scenario or things that affect them. Also, they are unaware of what the future would look like. And that's the reason why the well-being is much sought after these days. So we'll look at 2-3 things. One, what is it that affects the spiritual, physical, mental well-being of people and digital well-being also of people, and what is it that the roadmap of future will take place. There are 2-3 important things that we'll need to see. See, the gadgets that have come in, the digitization that has happened in excess has made up all of us lonely, especially when the youth were a very connected lot. There was a peer group. They used to connect physically at all times. And this peer group used to be a learning space for people where they could vent out the feelings, the emotions, etc., which they could not do at homes or with their families or in the school or college. But with the gadgets, late nights and the gadget, staring at the gadget all the time, an average of, let's say, 6-7 hours a day with a gadget is something which is excessively pressurizing the eyes as well as the brain. So the well-being is being affected because it is not just because of these digital gadgets, but because the effect of a lot of things on our happiness, on our health, on our mental health also. So let's look at what all has happened. See, all the youth of today would identify with Elon Musk and Jack Ma. And Jack Ma and Elon Musk are two people who most of us follow. So Jack Ma raised this 996 model in which he says that if you work 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. for 6 days in a week, you are bound to be successful in whatever you are doing. At the same time, Elon Musk also says that nobody has changed the world working 40 hours a week. So both of them profess something to make you successful is that you work excessive hours. Now, once you do this, the work-life balance is not in a very good shape. And this is one of the reasons, major reasons why you see that well-being of people is disturbed, because there is a place for each emotion in the 24 hours that you have. The second, and since we see them as the future young leaders of the world, when they profess that you need to work a lot to be able to be successful, we also think, yes, if I work long hours, then probably I'll be successful based on what they are saying. So the work-life balance of people is slightly disturbed, and there is an occupational burnout based on that we are in a spirit of competition in which we want to get ahead of the others. So it is personally and professionally causing a lot of burnout in the mental and physical reserves of people. That is one important aspect that we will need to look into. The second is there is an epidemic of exhaustion. So earlier it was cancer. There were diseases which were supposed to be incurable. But now we have a widespread, one in every 6 people has some well-being issue. It can be physical, it can be mental. So it's an important aspect because this epidemic is of exhaustion. Individuals and employers are finally confronting their demanding lifestyles and unrealistic personal standards. this shift has compelled brands all over the world to wage a battle against burnout. So there is an awareness that we should take care of the well-being of our employees, our families, our employers, and everybody. So that is something. The second thing is, during the COVID, everything has gone online. And with online, what has happened is, especially in the ages of teens and the youth in colleges, we see that any online platform lacks emotion. And that is the basic function, that learning is teaching plus emotion. So if there is no emotion in teaching, learning does not happen completely. So that is one area where during this pandemic, we have suffered that the Spirit of Happiness study that has happened says that the EQ has gone down during the pandemic, which is the last 500 days. It has gone down. And if it has gone down, then we see the statistics. It says that well-being, mental well-being, or EQ, for more specifically EQ, has gone down to the extent that in India, in Asia, it has gone down to the lowest. Africa is the highest, and Asia is the lowest in terms of the EQ. Now, once EQ is affected, then the whole mental well-being thing is in a state of quandary. Secondly, during the pandemic, what has happened is we have become more selfish. So when we are locked down in our homes, I am concerned about me, my family, their well-being, and I'm not concerned about the person who is the security guard at my gate, whether he's had his food, because I am so afraid that the virus will come into my home and attack my family, that we become very selfish. So to that extent, if I'm taking this small example, the EQ across the world has gone down. Now, taking some questions from the chat box, they said, then what are the role models, any role models to look at, unlike Elon Musk and Jack Ma? Yes, Bill Gates is one person who understood that the work-life balance has to happen fast, one. And then the social impact part of Bill Gates and Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is something that we need. See, happiness comes from the sharing, and that is an emotion. If happiness comes from sharing, and which is an emotion, Bill Gates understood very early, because he started early also, that burnout is something that he doesn't want to get into. So the moment he understood this, he got out of it, gave it to his executives, and started looking at sharing and caring as his major emotion. And that is the reason why I think that he is a good role model to understand for the youth today. Not that Elon Musk and Jack Ma are not, they are great people. But I am saying that the work-life balance is something that needs to be done in the context of well-being. So I was talking about how we had become selfish. We will need to be doing more talking about among the youth about happiness, digital well-being, mental well-being, etc. We are not. We usually brush it under the carpet. I know of a case study. There was a girl who was staying with her sister and brother-in-law, and she used to like her brother-in-law a lot. The sister and brother-in-law are very happy. So she says that if I marry someone like my brother-in-law, I'll be very happy too. So one fine day, the brother-in-law died in a motorcycle accident. This happened in the US. The girl was studying in the US and was staying with her sister and brother-in-law. So she had a guilt inside that because of her infatuation towards her brother-in-law, the brother-in-law died in the accident. Something which is a very common phenomena in India, which is known as najar lag gayi. So if we think that somebody is very good and somebody feels and somebody dies, then the guilt is there in us. This is a very common phenomena in India. So, but she could not share this guilt with her sister or parents because she thought that they will blame her for it. And that's the reason why she kept it to herself. And this repression in her brain of things that she could not share led to physical illness. She had pain in her calves, and she went to the doctor. The doctor gave her a medicine, and she had the medicine, and it subsided for 6 hours. Again, it would crop up. So when I went and somebody referred her to me, I spoke to her. The major advantage she thought was that I was unknown and I would not share the secrets of her, inner secrets of her, or repressed secrets of her to others, is the reason why she confided in me. And she said, okay, she told the whole story that I used to like my brother-in-law, and they were very happy together. I wanted to marry someone like him, not him. So he died, and that's it. The moment she spoke out all these things, the pain subsided. And this is something that youth should know, that mental well-being is something where repressed desires or repressed thoughts are going to play havoc with you if you don't share. In COVID situation, since you do not have your peer group to share such secrets, if I may say so, that is the reason why there is a lot of depression, there is a lot of mental health issues that are happening because of this repression. I can't speak to my parents. I can't speak to anyone within, because they would think differently because of the generation gap. And that's the reason why these mental health issues are cropping up during the COVID. So what can we do? So, now, talking of solutions. One is that the government thinks the average age of a parliamentarian across the world, according to the United Nations, is 53. And the average age or the median age of the population, general population, is 29.6. So if I am saying that half the population is below 30 years of age, and the people who make policies are 53 years of age, there are 2 generations which are ahead of us. So the policy making for youth becomes difficult because the 53-year-old parliamentarian rarely understands the mind of the youth. And this is one major reason why we see that policies made by the various governments are not very youth-friendly. They might have a youth policy. I am not saying that. But I am saying, as a policymaker, this is an experience that I have, and I'll share a small example with you. The example is in a very Mufassil area in India, where I am not taking the name of the state, where I was there with the education minister. And because the minister was there, there were a lot of officials there, and there were 2,500 children of 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grades, the senior school. And they were all teenagers. So I was conversing with them on what they wanted to become. So some said doctor, some said engineer, some said something, businessman, bureaucrat. But one boy got up and he put his hand on his waist and said, I want to become a terrorist. Now everybody was shell-shocked on what this boy is saying, because the minister was there and the minister had introduced me as someone who with an international fame. So there everybody started scolding that boy, and the boy started crying. I asked them, please keep quiet. The question I posed was to him and he answered, so let me deal with it. So when I went to him and spoke to him separately, he had a thought process in mind, and the thought process is like this, that in our school, there is a private agency. He was in grade 11 in a government school, public school. And there is a private agency which runs the computer lab there. It was outsourced to the private agency. And the policy at that time was that till 10th, boys would learn computers free of cost, and till 12th, girls are given free of cost education in that lab. So when he was in 11th, he went to the computer lab. The computer lab gentleman said, no, you are not allowed to do it. You please go back. The policy says it's only till 10th for boys. So if you want to learn, after school hours, you come and pay 10,000, we'll be able to teach you. This boy went back home and thought that if I pay 10,000, my family's annual income is rupees 10,000. And if it is rupees 10,000, then what is it that we will do if we pay it here? So he thought of a career where equipment is free and training is free. And he came to a conclusion that if I take terrorism as a career, equipment is free and training is free. See, the boy's thought process was bang on. He was wanting to help the family, except that he needed people to guide him to take the right decision. Left to himself, he would have become a terrorist. But then the minister that time understood the impact of such a policy making, where we make policies in AC rooms and don't understand what is the ground feeling and the last man, what he requires, what is the feeling. And that is the reason why that day he announced that till 12th grade, we will have computer education for boys also. My submission is that if policymakers do not understand the feelings, aspirations, needs of the youth on the ground who constitute more than 50% of the population, then we are not to be making policies. And for this, these 53-year-old people like me are not completely to blame. I see that the youth also are to blame partly, because youth have become fence sitters. They blame the elder generation for anything wrong, but do not come and take part in the leadership of leading nations, of leading corporations. The leading corporations, the youth are doing it, but politics seems to be a no to them as of now. So unless they come up and come into leadership positions, public leadership positions, and take decisions which are theirs, and not look at a 53-year-old or a 57-year-old or a 70-year-old politicians to be making policies for them. It is easy to crib, but it is not easy to get into the system and take decisions. I for one would think that a great solution for the well-being of youth is to be in the leadership positions at the right place so that they can lead the world into the future. Now, in future, what we are going to see, let's look at some of the questions that have been raised. Meanwhile, I am taking this, that in future, I am looking how can public libraries and community service providers help respond to youth well-being. Okay, so this I think I have answered in the WUA thing, but any which way, public libraries, since everything is digital now, public libraries or physical spaces where there is a community possible is something that is absolutely essential at this point in time, not just for reading purposes or physical reading purposes, but also because there is a peer-to-peer discussion possible, which is the need of the hour. The moment we spread our ideas, we discuss ideas, we take others' ideas, that is the time when change is possible. So public libraries, even since independence, pre-independence era, were the places where there were maximum discussions happening about nation building. So let's not restrict ourselves to think that public libraries are just where books are there. They are places of intellectual and literary discussions where changes happen worldwide. So if there are people who are able to access public libraries, these are the places where we look at the well-being. Once you discuss something, the thoughts that you have inside come out, like the girl there, the possibility that you have let out something which was repressed is very great. Second is you also have a feeling of happiness because you are being heard, and that happiness leads to a great amount of well-being. I am seeing in future a lot of things that are happening in the well-being section. One, I see that the physicians are going to be short in supply, because if 1 in 3 is what I am foreseeing will be the well-being issues across the world. We do not have the number of physicians of any sector put together to deal with a population of 1/3, which will be into these mental health issues or physical health issues. So we will be looking at telemedicine to a great extent. I would also see in future that social media profiles of people is where the major data is about those people. If that is the place where we are able to get the data from, a lot of mental health issues can be sorted out with the data of the behavior of people on social media. And we use of artificial intelligence, we'll get data and we'll get the data analytics to be able to solve problems better. So even repressed desires sometimes come out in the social media. So I think that is one area where I see a lot of things happening through telemedicine and through the use of artificial intelligence. The second is that I am also looking at personalized medication. Now, personalized medication is, suppose today I can go to a pharmacy and say that give me 500 mg of this medicine. I think in future this is not going to happen. For the well-being of people, physical well-being more particularly, something that is going to happen is we will have 3D printers everywhere. And the dosage, suppose according to whatever I have been diagnosed with, I don't need 500 mg, I need 350 mg. But the medication that is available is 250 or 500 mg. There is no 350 mg. So either the doctor prescribes 250 mg twice daily or 500 mg once daily, which is more than the dosage that you should be taking. So now with 3D printers coming in, I see that medicines customized to your needs. So I need 350 mg of a medicine. It will be done through a 3D printer and given to you. So I think from the health perspective, this is going to be a great changer, because I am not over consuming some medication, which is a technical issue, but yes, it happens as of today. There will be more emphasis on the client requirement or employee requirement. So what I am saying is there is something known as Cooley's looking glass self, which we practice even in marketing, in psychology, etc., where the consumer, what he thinks or what he requires is perceived when I stand in front of a mirror and consider myself to be the consumer or the employee, and look at whatever needs, aspirations, ideas that the consumer wants. If we are able to look at the mirror and understand what the consumer wants or the employee wants, the well-being of the employee can be taken care of. I'll give an example that Tata's, one of the biggest conglomerates in India, have a Cooley's looking glass self-analysis which happens in the training and placement department. So the needs of the employee, suppose somebody is bad in communication, he is segregated on the basis of communication, not a general training is given to them. So it is a very particular training that is. So we look at the well-being of employees by zeroing in on their needs and giving them what they need and not what the corporation needs or what somebody else needs. So this is something that is going to happen, that we will look at the last mile where the end user, and then look at his aspirations and then start dealing with. That is where one thinks that things will grow better in the well-being, especially the emotional well-being sector. Because if my employee, if I understand my employee better, if I understand my student better, if I understand my consumer better, the world becomes a better place. Just because we do not understand each other, the conflict that arises or the dissatisfaction that arises or the mental health issues that arise is because of the misunderstanding or not understanding of emotions of the other is something that we will need to deal with in future. We also have a lot of tech inputs in this for the well-being, but again, when there is a conflict, that we say that a lot of tech is being used, digital addiction is happening, and then we say that there are a lot of tech solutions that are coming in, so we should use them. So there is a conflict here. So how we balance our use, we should not be slaves to our digital devices. This is something that, so the optimum use of digital devices to be able to maintain a balance is something that we are important. So if somebody says that what would be the future, so that is what I have already spoken out. What is the right path, selflessness or hybrid or selfishness? I completely agree that complete selflessness might not be the right recipe for success. It is that since I have taken the example of Bill Gates, so Bill Gates earned his money and then started sharing it. So some selfishness he would have shown when he was earning money. So Microsoft was slapped with a lot of monopoly issues also, which shows that the company was at some point of time selfish. Or Bill Gates, as a promoter of Microsoft, would have been. So I would look at maybe a 50-50 kind of a situation where I grow and then I allow people to grow or help people to grow. So the selfishness, selflessness, I will not go for 100% selflessness for the well-being. Wealth is required. Good health is required. Your mental satisfaction is required. For that, you require a lot of things. It's not just money, but money can buy you a lot of things. So selfishness and selflessness in the right mixture, for me, it looks as 50-50. Any Indian role models, I think N.R. Narayan Murthy is, and Azim Premji are the two greatest role models that I can see in the corporate sector, and Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. These are three people who look extremely contented. If you look at Narayan Murthy, he's lived his life. He's become the chairman emeritus, and now he is looking at the well-being of other people. His wife also takes very great part in this, Sudha Murthy. So it's a very enriched inner self of these three people. Dr. Abdul Kalam is no more, but they exude a certain sense of satisfaction and happiness with life that clearly reflects when they speak, and they inspire us. So many people, that glow on their face is something which shows that the well-being of their lives is something that they have achieved. They have reached that self-actualization, and looks like that they are. It cannot be 100% all the time. There might be some hitches here and there. I might not be feeling very good health-wise today. So it's a changing scenario day by day. Today the company might be very good, tomorrow it not. But internally, if the equilibrium of the body in terms of the mind and body, or the physical and mental states is there, the equilibrium is there, it might tilt this way or that way for a small time, a small period of time, but the internal equilibrium should be so strong that it balances itself. And that is the secret of well-being of these three people that I have said. I request that anybody who's anywhere in the world, if you read through the lives of these three people, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam is an inspirational personality worldwide. He was the president of India and known as the missile man, a great scientist. But when he used to speak to children, he was so simple. He would sit down and speak to them, and he would speak to them at a level where the children loved to speak to them. Any resources to refer for well-being, books, podcasts, etc. I would request one thing. See, well-being is a science as well as an art. So well-being is something which is being researched to a great extent even now. Some things that are happening are individual ideas, like my own idea, I think these ideas will need to be researched to know what is right, what is wrong. There are some things which is known as the theory of love, which is a TED talk. If you could look at that. Love and well-being are internally connected. Happiness and well-being are internally connected. Love might mean both positive and negative love. Happiness might mean both ways. It can be grief as well as, because grief sometimes makes us learn something. So it's not that we completely ignore grief. When I say love and happiness, it has to be both ways. So sometimes sadness is also important for our lives. So a totalitarian view, if we take, because I am just summing up, totalitarian view, if I take a very robust balance of mental health, good physical health, we coupled with exercise or whatever is required, yoga, whatever, and the brain functioning to its best abilities, the emotions in the right place, where the emotions travel from the heart to the mind and not from the mind to the heart, and the digital devices being used to the optimum for whatever you want, and not using it just for the sake of using it, is something that I would look at as an ideal and good policy making to be put in place, to be able to control platforms, OTT platforms, on what they are showing, or whatever is being consumed by the youth. If we are able to show them the right things at the right time, in a very interesting way, I think that's the ideal solution for future. Thank you.